Oh, big money, bro. What the fuck?
Wait, don't you have to...
What the fuck?
Do you not have... Hey everyone, this is Curb and I bring you another history match. Today we have on the right, once again, Royal Paladin, and on the left we have something very special for you all. This is going to be a BT2 Nubatama deck, which is historically one of the most underrepresented clans, as it received some support during BT1, I believe, total of 4 cards, and then would not receive any support until, what is it, BT14 or something like that. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into the match. So, Nubatama going to be riding into the Embodiment of Armor bar. Now, of course, for those of you who did not play during the earliest points of Vanguard, there actually was no clan restriction or any sort of restriction at all. You could put any deck or any card into any deck. It didn't matter, and nothing really mattered in terms of deck building, which is why a lot of these underrepresented clans that had probably about 4 cards would require you to have basically play a whole different clan in order to actually build a playable deck. Of course, here we do see the Kagero clan, which is definitely a very popular deck that is a very popular engine to be splashed into a lot of other things, because Kagero, along with Royal Paladins, probably do have the most amount of support within these first 2 early sets, and a lot of it ends up being very good for basically clan mixing, I should say. Anyways, I guess getting into the match itself, we did see Nubatama riding into that bar. Of course, Royals are going to be riding into Lian. Lian is at a 7k and cannot actually hit that 8k body, which is why we're going to calling the Barkle to the right side there, and then using its skill to call the Flogel, who is going to be boosting the Lian so it can actually hit. That counterblast is going to be used on the Conroe, as we see another bar called, swinging with that, and then of course hitting into a stand trigger there, very interestingly enough, and restanding the bar and swing for another attack. So doing 3 attacks on our first grade 2 turn, so very cool. Another quick note that I should probably mention is that there was a trigger rule where you actually can't activate a trigger effect unless you have a card on your field with the same matching clan as the trigger. So basically we flipped over a Kagero trigger there. It would not trigger unless you had a Kagero unit on board. Obviously in this instance we have 3 Kagero units, so that is not a problem at all, but it is something that we technically do have to keep in mind, because if you ever get rid of all your Kagero units, you won't actually be able to activate trigger effects. For whatever reason, they thought that was a good idea. Anyways, going to be calling another Flogel from the deck with the Barkle skill, calling a Lu from hand, and then using the Lu to Superior Ride into Blaster Blade, keeping the Flogel behind the Vanguard so that we can still hit. Nubatama here going to be riding into their main boss monster, being that Voidmaster, who surprisingly is actually a 9k base Vanguard, so definitely not the greatest, as we do see it swing for 16 here. And then it does also have the skill where if you have more cards in your hand, when it attacks on the Vanguard circle only, it does get an extra 3k, but of course we don't actually have more cards, and then we're going to be hitting, and with the double drive check, that's actually going to put us at more cards than our opponent, meaning that we can't use Voidmaster's second skill, which is an on hit and allows you to counterblast once and force your opponent to discard a card if they have more cards in hand than you, which in that instance we clearly did not, or we unfortunately did not after the drive check. Anyways, going to be riding into the King of Knights Alfred and not calling anything. Probably didn't have anything very good to call. We did see some pretty good call targets off of that drive check, so maybe next turn we can actually do things. Of course, Alfred cannot actually be boosted, which is pretty funny because it's just going to be swinging for 12k. We see Nubatama riding into the Goku, which is, I suppose, the alternate boss unit for this Nubatama deck, using the Gojo skill to discard another Gojo and draw a card. Going to be swinging for just 10 here, doing a 1 trigger, which is going to be a 2 to pass, hitting into a Monica there. Of course, going to be giving an extra 5k to the Chikasumi, who is going to be getting another 3k thanks to the fact that Nubatama has more cards in hand now than the Royal Paladin player. So looks like we are probably going to try and have to build a board, you know, as Royal Paladin is supposed to be. We're going to be starting off with the Pongal skill, counterblasting one, and putting it into the soul in order to search out that Soul Saver Dragon. Now, Pongal is just honestly a overall very solid card. It sets you up for Soul Dragon, Soul Saver Dragon plays. It gives you that extra soul, but theoretically it can also just search you out an attacker. You can just call down the Soul Saver, but looks like we are going to be setting up our board at long last with a Gordon, another Alfred on the rear guard, as well as a Pongal and a Marin to back them up. Of course, we don't have to worry about 11k vanillas, or 11k base Vanguards, I should say, at this instance. So we're going to be swinging for a 20k with that full board. Alfred is going to be at his maximum strength, hitting into a heal trigger, healing down, going to be damage checking into nothing, as we still have two more pretty powerful swings. Swinging the 16 at the Shigasumi, just getting rid of that 11k attacker, which is definitely not the greatest at this point in Vanguard, especially since, like I said, there aren't a lot of 11k Vanguards, but the Alfred is going to be swinging with the power of that trigger, and that's going to be blocked with a 15k guard. And 15k guards are definitely a lot more impactful because, you know, we take 15k guards for granted at this instance, but of course, you know, we have a very interesting board here showing the full power of Nubatama, calling a Dreadmaster behind the Voidmaster. Now, Dreadmaster actually does have to boost a Nubatama in order to activate its skill, but the one thing I will say, it doesn't actually have to hit the Vanguard, as we do see him swinging at the rear guards, hitting into a stand trigger off the Goku skill and a Genjo, allowing us to heal back down to 3. Now, it's probably not going to come up this game, as we see the Voidmaster swing once again at the Alfred. Going to be attacking and hitting into it, but unfortunately, with that drive check, we do have more cards in hand, but we are still going to be swinging at that Gordon because it is still a 10k intercept, and just getting rid of those is very nice. Of course, we still do have too many cards in hand in order to actually use the Voidmaster skill, but we're going to have to keep that in mind as we see Royals riding into that Soul Saver Dragon, Soul Blasting the 5, keep making sure to keep the Blaster Blade in the Soul, which is actually somewhat relevant because there is a card that needs Blaster Blade in the Soul, which if you're from old Vanguard, you probably do know what that is, but if you don't, you'll see it later in this match, I promise you. So actually calling out another Gordon as well as a Lu here, and then deciding that that Lu should actually be in the back row, and then just going to be swinging with that column first because, you know, at this point in Vanguard, we are still playing stands because I don't actually think there's more than 8 crits in any given clan at this point, so you do kind of have to either play draws or stands, and stands are sometimes just objectively a little bit better. As we swing with the Pongal, drive checking with the Thing Saver, I believe that was a 1 to pass, and we're going to be putting all effects onto the Vanguard, but it is going to be hit into a defensive trigger there, so I don't really know what to make with that. We did lose out a lot on shield there, but at the same time, we did prevent our opponent from putting another 5k onto this Gordon, who is just going to be swinging for a nice 16. Going to be blocked easily there with just that heal trigger. So now at long last, after that play, there's actually another reason to do that, because now we actually have less cards in hand than our opponent does, meaning that our skills are alive. And you see the real reason why you put Pongal in the front. Normally, the common logic is to put your weaker units up front if you're going to be boosting them with something else. But in this instance, you do not want Lu in the front row because he is prone to getting attacked into. And if the attack hits, then we're going to be seeing the proccing of, you know, the Voidmaster skill and the Dreadmaster skill here, as we see the Pongal go down. But thanks to that drive check, we do actually now have we do have more cards than Royal Paladin. So even though discarding cards seems like an insane effect, it is actually kind of difficult to pull off. Now we do actually see a perfect guard being called down here. Another thing about early Vanguard is that perfect guards honestly aren't the greatest. I know, like, they're pretty cool, right? But in most cases, a lot of the times power is not exceeding 20k, And the only reason you would ever really want to use a PG is if you're taking a Vanguard swing that is 20k or greater. That way you don't commit as many cards, because most of the time swings are just going to be a 10k guard and a PG costs 2 cards, so you would in most cases rather just, you know, commit the 10k guard than have to give up 2 cards here. And of course we are seeing another problem with them, which is we kind of just clog with them as the Voidmaster finally hits, allowing us to activate the skills of both Voidmaster and Dreadmaster, forcing the opponent to discard a total of 2 cards there. So just popping off with the Nubatama skills at long last. Swing with the Goku, unfortunately never being able to drive check a grade 3 Kagero, which actually will allow Goku to retire a grade 1 or less rear guard as we swing the other 16 at the Gordon. Might as well, taking out a 10k guard. Guarding the Vanguard would have been a 10k guard anyway, but we do have a pretty even matchup here. We've got 4-4. It looks like Royal's finally getting quite a few cards there, starting off with an Akane, which is definitely a pretty powerful skill, being able to just superior call anything, well, not anything, basically just a Pongal or Margal, or I guess a Flogel or Wingull, but in this deck it's mostly just Pongal. But being able to convert your Counterblast into just another body is actually insanely powerful in this instance. And of course that column is even just at 11k, which if we were on 11k Vanguard would still be able to hit. And then of course Akane is at 16, so still pretty good. And of course we could theoretically use that Pongal, put it into the Soul in order to search out another I almost said Thing Saver, Soul Saver Dragon, and then just use that as the attacker. But I think we actually did end up damage checking our other Soul Saver. Looks like we're going to be calling 2 better rear guards here, the Marin and the Pongal. Of course, putting the Pongal behind the Vanguard because that's going to make a magic number, and Marin with the Pongal is also going to make another magic number of 15 as we swing the Akane, hitting into that Goku that we probably would have preferred to, you know, drive check as we guard here with the for 25, I believe. Yeah, that's 25 against a 20. That's 1 to pass, so going to be guarding with the 10k shield here. The other Nubatama, actually Nubatama has a grade 0 that you can play in the deck, and you see there just like the grades, the 10k shields being just like that much better than a PG there. Like, sure, you would have had to give up you did give up 2 cards to like guard that that Vanguard swing, but at the same time it's like, I don't know, it's just in this format PGs are not as good, as we see 3 PGs just kind of clogging up the hand, not being able to do anything. There really aren't that many threatening attacks in order to actually, you know, be worth using the PGs. We see the Voidmaster skill being used again with only 1 card in hand, discarding double PG from the opponent's hand and taking this one, of course, using the Jaren and Tejas combo play to make a 10k booster there, swinging for 23 with the power up of the trigger, as we see Solitary Knight Ganslot being ridden here, using his skill to counterblast 2, give himself an extra 5k and another critical, which is honestly maybe the right play because we do need to push 2 damage, and having a 2 crit Vanguard might just end up letting us seal the deal. So we're gonna hit a 2 to pass here. First check is gonna be Draw Share, and second check is gonna be a Blaster Blade, meaning that attack is not going to go through. The Marin can no longer hit, and we are just dead here. Anyways, that's going to be it for the match. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do things like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
The darkness of Nubatama. The heterodox taboo beget by the evil eye.